My name is Margot Hayes, and I am 71 years old now. 5 years ago, on the coldest Monday our little town of Spring Creek had ever seen, I stood beside a casket that was supposed to hold the love of my life and received a message that tore my heart clean in two. I'm alive. That's not me in the casket. My fingers went numb. The phone slipped into the muddy grass by Ernest's grave. I thought I had finally lost my mind. 42 years of marriage and grief had broken me. But the next message came before I could breathe. I can't say who I am. They're watching. Don't trust our sons. I looked up. There, 20 feet away, stood Charles and Henry, my boys' shoulders squared, faces pale but dry. No tears, not one. And in that moment, something inside me cracked wide open. People think a mother's love is unbreakable. They're wrong. It can survive anything except the day it discovers it has been raising monsters. I met Ernest Hayes when I was 24 and he was 26. I remember the exact smell of that Tuesday morning hot dust, bicycle grease and honeysuckle from Mrs. Lawson's fence. I was walking to the market in my faded green dress, the one with the tiny rip at the hem I never bothered to fix, when he stepped out of his shop, wiping his hands on a rag the color of storm clouds. "Mornin', Margot," he said, shy as a boy, though he towered over me. "Your bike need looking at." I didn't own a bike, but I smiled and said, "Maybe the chain's acting up." That was the beginning of everything good I have ever known. We married in the little white church with $15 between us and a borrowed suit for him. We lived in a two-bedroom house with a tin roof that sang when it rained. On stormy nights, we set out every pot we owned to catch the leaks and laughed until our ribs hurt. Ernest worked sunrise to sunset, fixing bicycles and lawnmowers. I cleaned houses and sewed dresses for the town ladies. We were poor the way only young love can be poor, happy, hungry and full of plans. Charles came first, pink and screaming, with his father's dark eyes. Henry arrived 2 years later, quiet, always watching his big brother like he was the sun. I nursed them, sang to them, told them stories about the stars, while Ernest carved little wooden cars in the lamplight. Sundays we fished at the river, the four of us in one leaky rowboat, and I thought this was what forever felt like. But children grow, and some grow away. Charles was always the ambitious one. At 12, he asked why we didn't have a television like the Millers. At 16, he sneered at the grease under his father's nails. When Ernest offered him a job at the shop, the day he turned 18, Charles laughed an ugly, sharp sound I can still hear. But "I'm not spending my life with dirty hands like you. Dad, I'm going to be somebody." Ernest never showed how deep those words cut, but I saw him on the porch that night, staring at the sky like it had betrayed him. Henry followed Charles the way a shadow follows its maker. City jobs, fancy suits, expensive cars that threw gravel when they left our dirt driveway. Visits grew rare. Phone calls became clipped. Christmas presents turned into checks we never cashed because pride tasted better than their pity. Then came Jasmine Charles's wife. She stepped out of their silver BMW in red-soled heels that sank into our yard like accusations. She smiled with teeth but not eyes, scanned our peeling paint and sagging porch, and said, "Charming," in a voice that meant the opposite. After that, the suggestions began. "You should sell this place. Mum, move somewhere. Easier. Dad's too old to be working with dangerous tools. There are lovely retirement communities. You'd have friends your own age." Each word was a splinter under my skin. One Sunday, Charles arrived with papers already filled out. "Just sign, Mom. I'll handle everything. You'll thank me later." Ernest took the pen, looked his eldest son in the eye, and snapped it in half. Ink bled across the table like black blood. "While I'm breathing, this house and everything in it belongs to your mother and me. When we're gone, you'll get what's yours." Not a minute sooner. That was the last time Charles smiled at us with anything close to warmth. 3 weeks before Ernest died, Charles visited alone. He sat at our kitchen table, the same table where he used to color with crayons, and said, "No matter what happens, Henry and I will always take care of you. Mum, I thought it was sweet." Now, those words keep me awake at night. The morning Ernest left for the shop, as usual, kissing my forehead, promising meatloaf for supper. I was rolling pie crust when the phone rang. "Mrs. Hayes, this is Memorial Hospital. Your husband has been in a serious accident. Come quickly." The world tilted. My neighbor Doris drove me because I couldn't stop shaking. When we arrived, Charles and Henry were already there, clean, composed, waiting. Tau. I hadn't called them. They said a machine had exploded. Severe burns, brain trauma. I begged to see him. They let me in for 5 minutes. Ernest lay wrapped like a mummy, tubes everywhere. The man I loved reduced to beeps and bandages. I took his hand, the only part still his hand, whispered, "I'm here, love." Fight for one heartbeat, I swear he squeezed back. 3 days later, the doctor gathered us in a windowless room. "We're keeping him alive on machines, but there's no brain activity. You need to think about what Ernest would want." Charles spoke before I could. "Dad never wanted to be a vegetable. We should let him go." A vegetable. My husband, the man who could fix anything with his hands, and still wrote me love letters on the back of shop invoices. I screamed at them. I think I called them vultures. I don't remember it. All I know is that night Ernest's heart stopped at 4:37 a.m. I held him while he was still warm and begged God to take me instead. Charles and Henry arranged everything. Cheap casket, private service. No newspaper notice. Dad would want it simple, they said. Only 6 people came to the burial. I was throwing the first handful of dirt. My wedding ring clinked against the wood when the text arrived. "I'm alive." That's not me in the casket. I thought it was cruelty beyond comprehension. A prank. A hallucination. Until the next message. Check the death certificate. Check the hospital records. Check the shop. And whatever you do, don't eat or drink anything they give you. That night I couldn't sleep. I went through Ernest's desk and found a locked metal box inside. 2 life insurance policies suddenly increased to $150,000 total, both changed 6 months earlier. A workers' comp policy I'd never seen, and a letter in Ernest's handwriting addressed to me. My dearest Margot, if you're reading this, they got me. I've been watching our boys. Something is wrong. They talk about money like it's oxygen. Yesterday, Charles said, at your age, any accident can be fatal. He smiled when he said it. I've hired a man, Stephen Callahan, to watch them if I die suddenly. Don't believe what they tell you. Protect yourself, my love. You are all that matters. I love you bigger than the sky. Ernest, I read it 10 times. 20. Then I drove to the shop at dawn. There was no explosion damage, no burn marks, every tool in its place. The place had been scrubbed clean. I drove straight to the police station. Sergeant O'Connell looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Hayes, there's no record of any explosion. Your husband was brought in unconscious. Diagnosis: methanol poisoning. Poison. My sons had poisoned their father. The next weeks were war. They brought pastries to cheer me up. I threw them in the trash untouched. They brought papers for me to sign, giving them power of attorney for my own good. I burned them in the sink. They told the neighbors I was losing my mind with grief, and every night a new message came from the unknown number, Stephen Callahan, the private investigator Ernest had hired. Tomorrow they'll try to have you declared incompetent. Don't open the door. I'm coming at 3 p.m. tomorrow, corner cafe. Back table, I went. Stephen was a tall, grey-haired man with kind eyes and a voice like gravel soaked in honey. He laid it all out. Recordings of Charles buying methanol, recordings of them laughing about how easy it would be to make my death look like suicide, bank records showing they were drowning in debt $110,000 between them. And the final recording, made 2 days before Ernest died. Once Dad's gone, Mum will fall apart. A few sleeping pills in her tea, a note about missing her husband. No one will question it. We'll be rich and free. I listened to my own children plan my murder and felt something inside me die the last soft part that still hoped I was wrong. That night, Stephen and I took everything to Sergeant O'Connell. Warrants were issued. At dawn the next morning, police cars rolled down our quiet streets. Charles tried to run. They found him hiding in his own garage behind boxes of Christmas decorations he hadn't bothered to bring to our house in 8 years. Henry wept and confessed everything within an hour. They exhumed Ernest's body. The toxicology report confirmed lethal methanol. The trial lasted for days. I testified in the same black dress I wore to our wedding reception, now altered to fit my thinner, grieving frame. When they played the recording of Charles saying, "The old man's getting suspicious, better move fast," several jurors cried openly, guilty on all counts. Life without parole for 30 years. Charles hanged himself in his cell 3 months later. Henry is in the prison psych ward, screaming some nights that his father stands at the foot of his cot. People ask if I'm bitter. I'm not. I turned the shop into a garden. Roses climb where Ernest once welded. I started a foundation with the insurance money stained with his blood could not stay in my hands. We help other families whose loved ones were murdered by the people who were supposed to love them most. Every Sunday I bring fresh flowers to Ernest's grave. I talk to him the way I used to when he was alive about the garden, the foundation, the weather, and every Sunday the wind answers, moving through the trees like his laugh. Sometimes I still get letters from Henry scrawled, desperate, begging forgiveness. I keep them unopened in a shoebox under my bed. Maybe one day I'll burn them. Maybe one day I'll read them. Today is not that day. I have learned blood is not enough to make a family. Love is a choice made new every morning. Ernest chose me every day for 42 years. My sons stopped choosing us the day money became more real to them than the sound of their father's voice. But I kept choosing truth, and truth, in the end, was stronger than death. 5 years have passed since that text message at the cemetery. My hair is snow white now, but my heart is lighter than it has been in decades. Stephen comes every Wednesday. We drink coffee on the porch and watch the roses bloom. And when the sun sets, painting the sky the same pink it was the evening Ernest first kissed me under the oak tree, I feel him beside me, proud, at peace. He knows I fought for him. He knows I won. And that, more than anything, is the forever we were always promised. Margot Hayes, Spring Creek, 2029.